Gledate Dnevnik.
You are watching evening news of Radio Television Serbia. President of Yugoslavia, Slobodan Milošević, met with his cabinet today. It was concluded that the defense tasks against NATO aggression are carried out successfully, despite the hardest military attacks after World War II that our country has been subjected to. Yugoslavia continues to be committed in principle to the policy of peace with equality for all of its citizens. Yugoslavs are convinced that this policy will win over the policy of force represented by NATO and United States. In reviewing the implementation of all measures and regulations, it was concluded that all institutions are functioning well under the war circumstances. There is a great deal of coordination in resolving the issues of importance to the defense of the country and life of its citizens. The responsibility and decisiveness of our citizens is evident in their desire to protect the freedom and integrity of our country. President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief Slobodan Milošević issued an executive order on extraordinary promotion. General Svetozar Marjanović was promoted into a 3-star general, and Nebojša Pavković was promoted into a 3-star general as well. Generals Marjanović and Pavković were promoted in an extraordinary manner for the skills they demonstrated in commanding forces that are involved in the defense actions against an enemy that possesses superior technical capabilities. A personal message of Slobodan Milošević to Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi was delivered to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Tripoli, Muammar al-Muntasser. Message expressed appreciation for Gaddafi's appeal to the League of Non-Aligned Countries, Organization of African Unity, Organization of Arab League, and Islamic Conference. This appeal was aimed at ending and condemning the aggression on Yugoslavia. Russia continues with its efforts to stop the aggression on Yugoslavia. President Yeltsin viewed the talks that took place in Belgrade as a positive step and ordered his government to continue its activity aimed at ending the aggression. Boris Yeltsin viewed as positive the talks that took place in Belgrade between Milošević and Primakov and stated that optimum results were achieved in Belgrade under the circumstances. After a meeting with Primakov and High's leadership, Yeltsin issued an order to continue with the efforts to find a political solution. Intensive diplomatic contacts with all Western countries are to be continued. Russia will try to inform them on the results of the talks in Belgrade, and as was stated on the press conference by Ivanov, to say to the Western countries that the policy of ultimatum cannot be used in dealing with Belgrade, especially since Yugoslavia made it clear that it was ready to negotiate under certain conditions. The initiative of Slobodan Milošević was more than enough to stop the aggression and start using the political mechanism. But Ivanov stated that NATO had made a decision even prior to the meeting not to stop the bombing. Ivanov blamed NATO for everything that took place after March 24th. NATO has turned into the war machine operated by Washington. Russia is not disencouraged by double standards of NATO and will not give up on diplomacy. Russia is convinced that the policy of small steps, one of which is the constructive proposal by Slobodan Milošević, can assist in finding a solution from this crisis which NATO brought on Europe. Marshal Sergeyev confirmed today at a press conference that the Ministry of Defense supports Yeltsin's position and that they are ready to propose other measures. Minister of Defense confirmed that Russian warships sailed towards Mediterranean and that others were prepared to follow suit. Further developments and the need for self-defense will be decisive factors in the decision-making. This was stated by Marshal Sergeyev. The policy of ultimatum was not accepted by Belgrade, as indeed it should not be accepted by any sovereign country. This was stated today by Igor Ivanov, Russian foreign minister. Yesterday's statement by Slobodan Milosevic is an important signal from Belgrade, which should be considered carefully by all those who are hoping for a turning point in this crisis and to a continuation of the political resolution of the Kosovo crisis. In view of the Russian delegation's trip to Bonn and Belgrade, Ivanov stated that Boris Yeltsin considered the trip to be well-timed. He also viewed it as positive and as the trip that achieved optimum results under the circumstances. The chief of Russian diplomacy, in the presence of a large number of journalists, stated that the true goal of the NATO aggression against Yugoslavia was to establish an unchallenged rule of NATO in the Balkans. Washington is already developing plans on Kosovo's secession from Yugoslavia or partition of Kosovo, and in order to do that, NATO needs not only to strengthen Albanian separatists but also to send ground troops. This was stated by Ivanov, warning that Washington is trying to turn the leadership of Russia against their own citizens and their condemnation of the aggression in Yugoslavia. Ivanov stated that such attempts will prove to be fruitless. Russia is open towards cooperation with all countries that are welcoming a peaceful resolution to the Kosovo crisis. In that attempt, he personally will make further calls to the countries from the contact group in order to reiterate Russia's opinion. Foreign Minister Zivadin Jovanovic sent a letter to the General Secretary of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, reminding him that on February 1st and March 17 he warned him about the NATO threats on Yugoslavia and asked that in accordance with the UN Charter, protective measures be taken. Zivadin Jovanovic informed the Security Council on the aggression on Yugoslavia and asked for urgent measures. I am deeply disappointed that despite our appeals and efforts of peacefully minded countries, Security Council did not act in accordance with its duties established in the UN Charter. For the first time since the World War II, an open act of aggression has been carried out in Europe. This also happens to be the first case in which the most powerful military alliance directly cooperates with a separatist terrorist organization in their aggression against a independent UN member. NATO aggression bombing of civilians is taking place without a single reaction from you. Bombs of the aggressor, including cluster bombs and delayed explosion bombs, are causing death and destruction around our country. They're destroying the houses, the cultural monuments, hospitals, farms, national parks, and infrastructure. Countries that are committing aggression shall be held fully accountable for all consequences, and the individuals who order such genocidal acts shall be responsible for crimes against peace and humanity. Zivadin Jovanovic, in his letter, asked Kofi Annan to urgently act on his responsibilities in order to stop this aggression and further threat to international peace and stability. You have a historic chance to support peace and justice and law and to protect the authority of the United Nations and restore its credibility. Your continuation to neglect your responsibilities will make you a willing participant in the process of the destruction of the UN system. I hope there still is time for a proper choice and that you will have enough courage to defend the legal system instead of defending force. Federal government in its session chaired by Momir Bulatovic issued a decree on determining the war damage caused by NATO aggression on Yugoslavia. The decree regulated the duties and responsibilities of government, institutions, and local agencies in determining the damage. The decree also established a federal committee that will estimate the war damage on the territory of Yugoslavia. This will be done so that the aggressor, who violated all norms of international law, can be held legally accountable as soon as possible. Federal government also appealed to the international community for the humanitarian aid needed to alleviate the humanitarian catastrophe caused by the aggression on Yugoslavia. Federal government also issued an appeal to all of the citizens of Kosovo not to leave their homes and homeland. Federal government urged all citizens of Kosovo and Metohije not to leave their homes and homeland despite bombs, missiles, and other death loads showered on Kosovo and Yugoslavia by NATO. Before NATO aggression on Kosovo, there were no refugee convoys there, destruction and burning of homes. There was nothing reminiscent of humanitarian catastrophe. Aggressor wanted to provoke the catastrophe and succeeded in it, only to use the results of the aggression as a justification in the eyes of the world. Government of Yugoslavia especially appeals to Kosovo Albanians not to leave the country but to remain here so that we can jointly remove this dangerous aggression as soon as possible. Only terrorists and murderers are not welcome in Yugoslavia and Serbia. The defense forces are defending and protecting all citizens from all religious and ethnic communities in Kosovo and Metohije. Serbian government held a session today chaired by Mirko Marjanovic, and it was concluded that there are sufficient supplies of food on the market. The prices remain stable. In order to stabilize the tobacco market, the government issued an order to increase the cigarette supply by 50%. This will be achieved by increased production and also by the additional steps in the sale of cigarettes. The inspection teams are authorized to undertake all measures to prevent the black market activity. Government also analyzed the measures needed to reconstruct the government buildings, schools, daycare centers, and hospitals ruined by the NATO air bombs. Ministry for Civilian Engineering was instructed to provide resources for securing the construction material needed for repair of the destroyed buildings. Western propaganda, which prepared the aggression on our country, continues to actively participate in genocide on Serbian people. This time, they use as a weapon a story on humanitarian catastrophe caused to Albanian refugees by repression from Yugoslav army and police. Western media purposefully conceals the fact that NATO bombs in Kosovo do not discriminate against people of different nationalities, and that people, in fact, are escaping from NATO bombs which target both civilian and military facilities. Unfortunately, the Western public has long ago forgotten the longest convoys of refugees that were ever seen in Europe, and those were the Serbian refugees escaping from Serbian Krajina and Croatia. This was filmed only 4 years ago after Croatian forces attacked Serbian Krajina in an operation called The Storm. After that, Serbian refugees headed towards Yugoslavia. Then Foreign Minister Vladislav Jovanovic urged Yasushi Akashi, special envoy of the UN, to enable the refugees a free passage to Yugoslavia. This was a mind-shattering picture. Unprecedented exodus of Serbs from Krajina was the latest chapter in a book of Serb refugees. After the breakup of the former Yugoslavia, 2 million Serbs lost their homes in Bosnia and Croatia. 700,000 of them came to Serbia, and the rest resettled in Republika Srpska, European and overseas countries. Based on one of the reports of the Croatian Helsinki Watch at that time, in Croatia, 10,000 Serb homes were bombed. When at 5 a.m. on August 4, 1995, Serbian refugee convoys headed towards Yugoslavia, all international humanitarian organizations disappeared from the scene. The international media gave the following commentary on the exodus of Serbs from Krajina. New York Times reported that United States assisted Croatia in strengthening its military and carrying out the military Operation Storms, but that even Bill Clinton, now known throughout the world as a mass murderer of Serbs, had to calm down Tudjman and threaten economic sanctions that naturally were never implemented. It was reported that Clinton's administration felt very uncomfortable, as they reported, as a result of terrible crimes committed by Croatian forces in Krajina. Did NATO alliance bomb Croatia? Of course not. And this is exactly why the long convoys of Serb refugees from Croatia are a dark spot on the international conscience, especially if one knows that the first bombs of NATO aggression fell directly on the old military complex which housed Serbian refugees in Kuršumlija and Prokuplje. Overnight, NATO alliance stepped from the marketing world into reality. The first information they received in reality world was utterly disappointing. A small country was expected to fall apart at the mere thought of the aggression. Dissatisfied by its own results and by what they unwillingly admit was a well-organized and flexible response from the Yugoslav army, our bloodthirsty enemy overnight became concerned over the destiny of Albanian refugees. Once again, they called to their aid media monsters, CNN and Sky, who were to compensate for all NATO military shortfalls. Instead of reporting on a criminal act against a small country, Western media cries over Albanians, even the ones with bloody hands who were forced to leave their comfortable homes. And naturally, the wave of refugees was caused by the alleged Yugoslav repression, regardless of what is actually taking place in Kosovo. European neighbors have a better memory than their overseas partners. However, it is hard to believe that they have forgotten all the facts. Who actually started the wave of refugees and when? We did not forget that the first convoy left actually in the orange vehicles headed by William Walker. So was the refugee crisis caused by Yugoslav military and police repression? Naturally not. OSCE was the first to leave because they were well informed of this latest neo-Nazi aggression against Balkans, or perhaps wider, Europe itself. They knew that bombs would be hitting all homes in Kosovo. Even a so-called pacifist Ibrahim Rugova knew that. He even declared it in his message sent to his fellow citizens one day before their homes were destroyed in the aggression. He called them to leave their homes and evacuate into Macedonia, where everything was standing ready for them. Citizens of Pristina did not take this warning seriously up until the night when the aggression started, when bombs started the destruction of their homes. Unfortunately, only those who survived it understood it. And today, CNN and Sky lament over revengeful Serbian nature. They wonder how on earth the Yugoslav government managed to force the Kosovo Albanians to leave their homes destroyed by tomahawks in the cities that were left without electrical power or water after the bombing. Instead of this concern from afar, Kosovo Albanians and all other Kosovo citizens would much rather see the verification teams at their land. In any case, if there is such a repression, why aren't the verification teams here to report on that? Instead, they're in Macedonia, which is where the refugees are headed. Facts are facts, and nobody can deny that. Not even CNN or Sky. Nobody is that stupid. This is why they don't deal with facts, but with allegations. It is undisputable that there are refugees. Everybody can confirm that. But not the way that CNN and Sky are doing that. CNN and Sky are so convinced that their viewers are retarded that they shower them with these unconvincing footage showing refugees in the snow and then also refugees in the hot summer sky. At the end, let us say what NATO aggressors want us to say. There are refugees, but less than you wanted because you are killing them. You are killing not only those who became refugees in this current crisis, but also those who already survived one refugee exodus from Bosnia and Croatia, only to be killed by yaw bombs in Serbia. On a daily basis, CNN and other broadcasting companies whose countries are involved in an aggression against our country spread lies in order to assist those who want to introduce their style of democracy with the help of bombs and missiles. The latest lie was heard in a direct live telephone conversation between CNN and a notorious Albanian criminal and terrorist Hashim Taci, who is hiding abroad, but alleging that the soccer field in Pristina has been turned into a concentration camp where 20,000 Kosovo Albanians are waiting to be executed. The best evidence that this is another lie by Albanian terrorist who continues to incite Kosovars and deceive international community is this footage of the soccer stadium of the soccer club in Pristina. So this is fact. This is the truth. And another fact that was not reported by CNN is that aggressor bombed the administration building of the Ministry of Interior, housing complex for refugees and underprivileged citizens. This, gentleman for CNN, is the truth. Self-proclaimed terrorist leaders alike hiding abroad continue to distribute lies which deceive not only foreign media but their own people. Leaders of Serbian terrorists and separatists from Albania and other aggressor countries claim that today in the streets of Pristina you can find only dead bodies. Please look at this yourself. So these are the streets of Pristina. You can see people who are alive unless the dead came back to life, as Taci claims. You can see that the shops are open, the public transport is underway, but you can also see a concern on the faces of the citizens of all ethnic backgrounds because sirens will soon sound a new air raid. It is also true that our people and soldiers have demonstrated decisiveness, as has our leadership, in defending the country from this aggression. France Press Agency denied today the false information on the alleged concentration camp on the soccer stadium in Pristina. France Press reporter, upon inspecting the stadium, reported that the stadium was completely empty. The grass on the field was untouched and that he was able to enter the stadium without any delay. It has been quite a while since anyone used the stadium, which you can tell from the state of the grass. The only thing that is new on the stadium is a huge damage caused by savage NATO bombing 2 days ago. On a border crossing Tabanovci, there was a group of Albanians, mostly from Kosovo, but also from other areas. They're not leaving Kosovo because of repression or the alleged ethnic cleansing. They're escaping because they're afraid of the insane NATO bombing. Yes, every day they're shelling, and we were told that they would be shelling again today. So we're going to Macedonia. Yes, I'm afraid of the shelling. It is very difficult. The houses are burning. We were left without houses. We had to leave. We're going to Macedonia. Have they bombed Vučitrn? Yes, they have, terribly. Were you afraid? Oh, we were afraid a lot. The children, too. We were really afraid. Are they shelling? Yes, the bombs are falling in Pristina. Everybody's leaving. Why are you leaving? We are worried. We are afraid. Where are you coming from? Gnjilane. I've been waiting here for 2 days. How is it in Gnjilane? It's terrible. If it wasn't terrible, we'd be still in our houses, but we're afraid. The situation is terrible. We are not running away because we feel like it. We're running away because of our children. Our children are afraid. Everybody's afraid. Have they ruined the houses? Haven't you heard about it? They're burning the houses. The bombs are falling in Gnjilane. Yes, they are. Yes. We were afraid. This is why we're escaping. The old people are crying, let alone the children. Aggressor does not have sufficient number of bombs to outweigh our love towards freedom and our homeland. This was the message of the soldiers of the Third Army who met with Generals Pavkovic and Lazarevic, who visited the troops of Pristina Corps in the military zone. Commanders of the Third Army, Generals Pavkovic and Generals Lazarevic, visited the troops in the military zone and were able to see for themselves the readiness of the soldiers in defending their country. They also talked with soldiers and officers. Do you know that I have sent a message to the soldiers commending them on a brave and professional attitude? I said that you were true heroes. You are persevering under extreme circumstances. Can we send a message to aggressor that they do not have sufficient bombs to outweigh our love towards freedom and our homeland? Yes, we can. Do you know that as defenders of Kosovo, you are becoming a legend? You are writing the brightest pages in the modern history of the Serbian people. You know that on 1389, Serbia was enslaved. On 1999, they're trying once again to take Serbia away from us because Serbia is being protected here in Kosovo. Kosovo will not give up on Serbia, nor will Serbia give up Kosovo. And this is why you should be proud of what you're doing today for your homeland. General, we are entering the second day of NATO aggression against Yugoslavia. Despite daily bombings, you and the commander of the Third Army are visiting the troops daily. Can you tell us something about the situation? For 8 days now, we have endured criminal NATO aggression against our country. NATO is carrying out savage attacks together with the remaining Albanian terrorists and separatist forces. They are conducting a terrible attack on our country with a focus on Kosovo. Based on the force that is used and determined targets, this is the most brutal and bloodiest NATO aggression against a peaceful and independent and sovereign country. During 8 days of war, NATO aggressor achieved only one goal. They have caused a great evil to our country and created a humanitarian catastrophe in the whole country. This is a dark and bloody aggression. During the 8 days of war, the aggressor attacked everything that was Serbian, everything that had any symbol of our state. They attacked all defense forces of Pristina Corps, but also non-military targets, industrial, medical facilities, and cultural monuments. The cruise missiles, also called smart missiles, which were programmed to hit only Serbian targets, also hit the facilities that belong to other ethnic communities in Kosovo. They cannot achieve other goals. Remaining Albanian terrorist forces in Kosovo are facing defeat. All defense forces of Pristina Corps are completely operational and ready. And as far as their use of ground troops, they better think twice. Pristina Corps, together with other forces, together with the Third Army, decisively defends the freedom, integrity of its country. A high military readiness of all units of the Corps, excellent morale, are a guarantee that the country will be defended successfully. In the units, here there are several twins. What is your name? A Private Boyan? Petrovic and Private Petrovic Dejan. How long have you been in the army? For 6 months now. We were well prepared during our training in Novi Pazar, and later on we came here to protect Kosovo. You are here on the field every day. NATO aggression is underway. How do you feel? Well, we have no fear. We are not afraid of NATO. We are carrying out our responsibilities successfully. We shall fight until the end. What would you like to say to your parents? We are here to protect our homeland, and they could also join us. Who do you have at home? We have an older brother, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. Do you talk to them on the phone? Well, not lately, but occasionally we do. We also write letters. We want to send our greetings and tell them not to worry. Since the commanders are here, what would you like to say to them? I want to say to them that we shall all stick together in defending our country. The latest NATO attack on Pristina and Gračanica took place last night. Immediately after midnight, the first wave of bombing started. In addition to 4 cluster bombs, which are forbidden by the international agreements signed by NATO countries, you are now watching the effect of these forbidden cluster bombs. The second wave of the attack came about 30 minutes later. We were following this attack from a hill near Pristina. In the second wave, 4 more cluster bombs were thrown. Our defense responded by shooting at the enemy planes. And here there is footage of a true fight between our defense forces and the aggressor. The aggressor was trying to confuse the air defense forces. Here's a missile coming from above. Another one coming this way. For the third time, the enemy targeted the village of Gračanica, where one of the most sacred monuments of Serbian culture is located. The enemy, who hails from a country with no past, no ancient culture, target exactly that what they themselves do not have in their countries. Gračanica is, as the poem says, proudly raising up into the sky, defying the time and aggressor. They don't understand that Gračanica does not belong only to Serbs, but also to the cultural heritage of the world. The enemy is trying to destroy our cultural roots, its cultural centers. Foreign journalists came to visit the monastery Gračanica to see for themselves the criminal acts of the enemy. They threw 2 more bombs last night, not far from the monastery. One of them did not explode, and the other one was a cluster bomb that spread throughout the environment, and you can see the damage that it caused. The missiles of aggressors' democracy can be seen throughout the fields. There are time-delayed mechanisms, shrapnels all over. Last night, aggressor launched 20 missiles on the village of Lukari and Devet Jugovića. They targeted strictly civilian objects. Tens of villagers were seriously injured, including children. One family residence was completely destroyed and tens of them were seriously damaged. On this village of Lukari, they threw containers with the forbidden cluster bombs. One of them fell on the school and damaged the playground. Since a large number of these bombs have a delayed activation mechanisms, the government is doing everything possible to evacuate the civilians into the safe places. Missiles killed a large number of cattle. One cruise missile last night hit and damaged the highway Priština-Niš. Serbian villages near Priština, Kišnica, Gračanica, Badovec and others have been targeted now for 7 days. This obviously demonstrates that the enemy goal is a destruction, exodus and ethnic cleansing of Serbian villages. Last night, the attack lasted for several hours and the bombs and their remnants were spread throughout the fields around the village. They were using cluster bombs, which are forbidden by the international agreements. The villagers are afraid of these attacks but are firm in their determination to remain in their century-old homes. This is a criminal act. What did we do to them? There is nothing here. They're just the houses of villagers and the fields between them. What are these murderers doing? I don't want to leave this area. These bombs that were thrown on civilians were also found in Sušica, a Serbian village, which is near the factory that produces auto parts. The cluster bomb that fell over the village, you can see the remnants of these bombs here with the date when they were launched. Based on the information received from the field, the air defense of Yugoslav Army neutralized 3 missiles shot on Prizren and 1 craft, which apparently landed near the Šar Planina. In several neighborhoods last night, terrorists attacked well-respected and loyal families in Prizren. They damaged the residential houses in several neighborhoods, mostly in the streets where traditionally Serbs, Turks and Muslims have lived together for decades. The attacks were carried out by hand grenades and other explosives around 11 p.m. Luckily, there were no injured civilians. Last night, in NATO attack, the infrastructure and industrial facilities of Uroševac were targeted twice. 2 missiles were launched on the coal power plant and on the water plant and food storage. It is estimated that there are several dead and injured persons. Once again, we were reminded that the enemy is targeting civilian facilities trying to destroy a normal life. However, despite barbaric bombing, life is moving without major disruptions. There are sufficient supplies of medicine and food. Tanjug reports that NATO attacks started at 11:30 a.m. on Peć, and the attack was continued in the afternoon. They attacked with cluster bombs. Air raid alarm is still on. Yesterday, after 4:30 p.m. in Vranje, there were very strong explosions. Aggressor launched 6 missiles from the area of near the border with Bulgaria. Air defense responded successfully and hit all the missiles. there was no major damage. Our air defense today in the afternoon destroyed one more enemy missile near Vranje. Over 200 domestic and foreign journalists were able to see for themselves the results of NATO destruction. This footage from Sloboda factory in Čačak confirms that they also target civilian facilities. Over 10 bombs fell on this factory that produces household electric appliances. As a result of the attack, 5,000 workers were left without work. They support over 20,000 people, actually 1/5 of Čačak population. This factory produced a wide assortment of kitchen appliances, vacuum cleaners, ranges, quartz heating elements, and so on. The damage is estimated at several $100 million. The workers of the factory stated that our country will defend itself from the aggressor, that the facilities will be rebuilt in the future, which will show to the aggressor that our country cannot be conquered and destroyed.
Coming up next, a newscast from Russian television. Then today's Pentagon briefing on the military action in Yugoslavia. After